A tiny leak led to a massive unexpected collapse at Kilauea Volcano. The 2018 eruption of Kilauea in Hawaii featured the spectacular collapse of the volcano's caldera, creating a hole nearly as deep as One World Trade Center in New York City is tall at its summit. And now new research finds that this dramatic change was triggered by only a small leak of magma from the reservoir beneath the peak. Instantaneous and explosive caldera collapses, such as the event that formed Oregon's Crater Lake in 7,700 years ago, are a better known phenomenon, but the new findings suggest that slow motion collapse events such as Kilauea's, which are vastly different in nature, may be occurring at volcanoes around the world, and in fact, a comparable one occurred at Bardarunga's caldera in Iceland between 2014 and 2015. What we have learned from these two events, Kilauea and Bardarbunga, is that there may not be much warning. This is what geophysicist Magnus Tumi Gudmundsson, who studied the Bardarbunga collapse, but was not involved in the new Kilauea research. At first, Gudmundsson says, caldera collapsed eruptions look a lot like typical eruptions. Then, when conditions are right, the magma chamber underneath the volcano can just split apart and magma can flow freely and the caldera roof collapses. Kilauea is a 1,250 meter tall, broad shield volcano in the southeastern coast of Hawaii's Big Island. In 1983 it began belching lava from its eastern rift zone, an area fractured by fissures created as gravity pulls the entire area downward towards the sea. That eruption culminated furiously in the May 2018 when the lava lake within the caldera or the crater at the volcano summit began to drain like a bucket with a hole in it. And this is the footage that we have from USGS, Michael Poland. As you can see, time lapse, of course, how it's draining. Okay. Draining like a bucket with a hole in it. And simultaneously, the lower part of the eastern rift zone came alive with lava fountains and new fissures, one of which spouted a river of lava that flowed through residential neighborhoods into the sea. More than 700 homes and other buildings were destroyed before the eruption stopped in August of 2018. Now, the disaster took place under the watchful eyes of more scientific equipment, including drones, GPS sensors, thermal cameras, and satellite-based radar, than any caldera collapse eruption in history. Some of the details you get from Kilauea is unlike anything we've seen before, Gudmundsson says. In 3 separate papers published this week in Science, researchers wove together much of the data from those instruments to tell the tale of Kilauea's eruption from summit to sea. The first revelation discovered in a study led by U.S. Geological Survey geophysicist Kyle Anderson was that the eruption caused the caldera collapse rather than the other way around. That relationship had been a geological chicken and egg question debated among scientists, but at both Bardarbunga and Kilauea, the eruption clearly came first. Anderson and his team found that the rifting of the island, which occurs as gravity drags the slope of Kilauea seaward, opened up fissures for magma to drain from the volcano's reservoir and the lava lake above it. When the magma below the caldera disappeared, all the rock in its floor crumbled down more than 500 meters over an area of 5 square kilometers. Once the caldera floor buckled, it pressurized the whole underground magma plumbing system like a piston, increasing and prolonging the eruptive activity in the rift zone. Previously, there were no good estimates of how much magma drainage is necessary for a collapse, but Anderson says the Kilauea eruption demonstrated that it can take remarkably little to kick off this fiery process. Quote, before the first collapse, really only a very small fraction of the magma was removed, almost certainly less than about 3.5 to 4%, he said. Kilauea summit caldera may have already been thin and faulted and thus weak, Anderson adds. It remains to be seen if other calderas are similarly vulnerable. The connection between the caldera collapse and the lava flow in the lower east rift zone was evident in real time, says Matthew Patrick, geophysicist at the USGS Hawaii Volcano Observatory. And a separate paper, he and his colleagues found that the lava river flowing through the rift zone experienced hours-long surges that occurred within minutes of the collapse at the summit caldera 40 kilometers away. These lava floods resulted from pressure pulses created by the collapsing caldera, Patrick says. The pulses sometimes cause the lava channel to overtop its banks, creating new rivulets that threaten nearby property. A geochemical analysis of lava in the rift zone, led by University of Hawaii at Hilo volcanologist Cheryl Gasecki, further cemented the caldera rift zone connection. It found that hotter magma, likely from the summit reservoir, mixed with magma left over from older eruptions. Kilauea is not likely to erupt with such vigor again until its magma chamber refills with molten rock from the Earth's mantle, which could take years to decades. But there are other similar volcanoes sitting in rift zones around the world, from Iceland to the Galapagos Islands, and the information learned at these places like Kilauea and Bardabunga could help illuminate how those far-flung calderas might collapse. Quote, well-monitored caldera collapses can provide crucial information about the magma plumbing system beneath these volcanoes, end quote, said Michelle Parks, geophysicist at the Icelandic Meteorological Office, who was not involved in the new research. These novel details could include how magma is stored, how much of it is available to erupt, and how it migrates, she said. And as she added, all of this information is critical for determining the potential style of the eruption and also the size of the eruption. This is from Scientific American, and it's from Luxor Media. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.